My next guest is Heather Zichal, CEO of the American Clean Power Association, which represents more than 800 member companies from across the renewable energy sector. She's the first ever CEO of the group and brings experience across the public and private sector to the position, including a previous role as Deputy Assistant to the President for Energy and Climate Change during the Obama administration. Heather, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, you worked in the Obama administration and on these issues, and now you formed this American Clean Power Association early this year on January 1. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization and why you formed it?
Absolutely. We are, as you said, a new trade association. And for the first time ever, you have all the key technologies of the clean power sector under one roof. So we speak for wind, both on and offshore, solar, storage, and transmission. And the vision behind the trade association really was driven by our board of directors, who looked around the table and said, today, most of our industry is in wind and solar, or wind and storage, or wind and solar and transmission. And so our trade association needs to grow and represent our industry. So we made this proactive decision to speak with one voice on behalf of clean power. And obviously, we have our hands full with a Congress that is really excited to move forward on an infrastructure package and an administration that's really prioritized this transition to a clean energy economy.
You mentioned infrastructure, and of course, that's the big game in town now. You know politics and policy very well. Everyone talks about the Senate 50-50 split. Basically, the House is also 50-50 split. Number one, what do you think of Biden's infrastructure plan, and how do you think that Congress could change it? Because obviously, lawmakers have told us, okay, we like the plan, but, Congress writes the laws around here, and it's going to be kind of different than the COVID bill, which by and large was the president's plan with tweaks. But this one could undergo some significant changes. And what do you see its prospects of actually passing?
Well, it's obviously something we think about as an industry every day. And we feel like there's nothing but opportunity to partner both with Congress and with the administration on this dual track to create new economic opportunities and reduce carbon emissions. I think for starters, the Biden administration took a very holistic approach to energy, to energy and the necessary infrastructure. And that's what we really need in this country. You cannot take a piecemeal approach to solving the climate crisis. It's about the fuel we put in our cars and airplanes. It's about how we heat and cool our homes and businesses. And, it does require an all of government approach akin to what we've seen from the Biden administration proposal. Now, to your point, obviously, we're opening stakes here with the Biden proposal. And to your point, Congress will certainly have something to say about their role in the infrastructure package. And we expect that there will be a lot of action in both the House and the Senate. If I had a crystal ball to tell you exactly how this is going to all play out, I would be the most popular person in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, I think there's a long path from where we are today, not even having bills introduced, to sort of going through that legislative process, engaging in the substance, making modifications as the bill goes through committee, et cetera. Our industry, as I said, we really see key opportunities to continue to create jobs, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we'll be heavily engaging both with the administration as well as Congress as this whole legislative proposal is playing out.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the best kind of message for this legislation? Because when you say infrastructure, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. There are a lot of things in the Biden plan that Republicans say are not infrastructure, but you see Democrats pushing back. No, we need this. We need broadband. We need some child care facilities. We need to make sure that we have people going home instead of staying hospitals, and that is infrastructure. So from a kind of a messaging standpoint, how do you get through to the American people that this is a bill, whatever it ends up being, that needs to pass?
Yeah. We can spend a lot of time in Washington fighting about the definition of infrastructure, but for ACP, we're focused on how do we put steel in the ground? How do we stand up an offshore wind industry for the first time in the United States? How do we continue to deploy wind and solar and create jobs in the clean energy sector? That's where we are very focused. And I think the message about infrastructure, about the role that the clean energy economy can play. I mean, we are $1 trillion part of the economy today. And we're only going to continue to grow. So I think the message about infrastructure, the message about jobs, I mean, those are real issues that resonate with everyday Americans. And certainly they look at our industry and they see we are in blue states, we are in red states, and we're creating jobs in all 50 of them. So I think that there's a broad recognition that clean power has an important role to play, not only in continuing to provide affordable and reliable electricity, but also as we move forward. You know, Mr. Trump before me was talking about the potential for job creation and what that means at a state level. And I think the American people are ready. I mean, certainly we even saw this week, dozens and dozens of CEOs pushing this administration to up their ambition when it comes to Glasgow and the upcoming climate conference at the end of the year. So I think this is something Americans want. I think this is something that business leaders are looking for, and now is a real opportunity. I mean, I on a daily basis look at what we could do with this infrastructure package for our industry is truly a once in a generation opportunity.
You mentioned the climate change conference in Glasgow, and I want you to kind of talk about the international effect. Obviously, the Biden administration re-entered the Paris Agreement. Just internationally, where do you see, I mean, Americans are very focused on America, but where do you see the movement outside of the United States and where it's going?
Well, as President Biden has said, this is really a battle to see who can win the race to be the world's clean energy superpower. I think the President Biden is really focused on what role he can do, both using his existing authorities in the government as well as engaging with Congress to make those meaningful contributions at the domestic level. At the global level, I mean, we sort of started based on the past administration from ground zero. It was a priority for Biden to re-engage in the international climate dialogue. He made that a top priority. Today, we've got the climate envoy, Kerry, engaging with China. And I think what we'll see from this administration in the weeks and months ahead as we lead up to Glasgow is, a consistent and very focused effort to increase ambition, to engage the key stakeholders, and to make sure that we as a country are leading this dialogue, not sitting back and letting the world decide for us. So I expect a lot of leaning in. I expect points on the board between now and the next COP. And I expect that there will be a strong link to not only the importance of climate, but how climate overlaps foreign policy.
Climate change was a key topic, as you know, during the Obama administration, and the climate change cap and trade bill passed the House, did not get a vote in the Senate. What do you think Democrats have learned from the debate back then and applying it to now? Because obviously there are different approaches that are being pursued than the bill that passed the House.
Absolutely. Well, I think for starters, everybody's gotten a lot more clarity around what the American people are looking for. And to that end, you see a lot of investment happening through the tax code and clean power. You see a focus on what do we need to do to build out our transmission lines so that we can bring the wind and the sun from the windy and sunny spots of the country to the population centers that need that access to that clean energy. So as a whole, I think, we have a better line of sight to what policies are needed. But we've also seen the industry really grow up a lot, and just in the last decade. I mean, in 2009, you had a very different scenario. You fast forward to today, solar costs have decreased 90%, wind costs are down 70%, and 6 states generate about 20% of their electricity from wind. So we've got this whole different dynamic, right? Like the policies that you would want to put in place in 2009, based on just what's happened over the last decade, don't make sense. So we've got a clear line of sight to the transmission, trade, and tax policies that we need to advance this work. And I think that, staying laser focused on that, making the case to the American public who clearly wants more clean power, sees that opportunity, and wants to create new jobs and new opportunities for growth in red states and blue states. I think it's the perfect combination.
Yeah, and you mentioned the movement, and of course every decade's different, and things evolve, and certainly the business community. I mean, you're talking to Josh Bolton of the Business Roundtable. And the business community has changed. I don't sense a lot of change as far as the energy transition and green jobs from congressional Republicans. Do you think that could change over the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm very optimistic that can change. As I said, you've got all these states leading the charge on clean energy. In fact, 2 red states, my home state, Iowa, and Kansas, over 40% of their electricity is from wind. And so people see these projects in their home states. They know somebody who's, works as a wind turbine technician or, a solar installer. And the more that the clean energy becomes part of the fabric of our nation, and the more success we have in bringing energy costs down, I mean, I think that's only upside for our industry, but I also make the point it's upside from a climate perspective as well.
As far as green jobs and the transition to green jobs, and you heard Richard Trumka on earlier, said, hey, it's a concern. If you have a job and you're going to lose the job, or your job's not going to pay as much, that's going to make some people nervous. As we do this transition, which is really kind of a revolution that I don't think a lot of people understand over the next 20 years of how things are going to change on so many levels. What are some of the obstacles and what are some of the opportunities, workforce training and getting people comfortable? Because as you know, Heather, people don't like change.
Well, that is true. However, change can be good. And, I think a couple things. To your point, our nation is on a journey to change the way we create and use energy. No transition is going to be without bumps in the road. Are we going to run into issues? Are we going to have challenges that seem insurmountable? Absolutely. The answer is yes. However, I think our industry is showing up in a space where we are trying to recognize, wrap our arms around those challenges, and think really creatively about what we can do to be a partner in finding solutions, because the climate science sort of demands us to. And where I see real opportunities are, I couldn't be more excited than I am about the opportunity in offshore wind. Not long ago, you saw Sean McGarvey from the the North American Building Trades praise one of our member companies, Ørsted, for standing up a training program for workers to install offshore wind turbines. So we're setting this entire industry up, and we have an opportunity to create all these jobs, not only in putting steel in the outer continental shelf, but also revitalizing our ports. And what we found too, that's really exciting to me, is a lot of the jobs and skills that are required for in offshore wind actually match really, really well to oil and gas jobs. So I think while we can't plot out everything perfectly, I do think our industry is coming to this conversation, trying to understand where those challenges are, get ahead of them, and work with the key stakeholders, whether that's the states, whether that's labor unions, to find good solutions so that we can make this transition work for everyone.
It is going to be an interesting next decade, Heather. And Heather Zichal, thank you for joining us and expressing your views. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
you.